Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 AP English, the Roberts Lectures. We are in the poetic section, and we turn now to William Blake's London, the 1794 offering. Now, of course, Blake is a really important poet for us in 303, one of those Generation 1 romantic poets, as we have spoken about it in other lectures posted at learnstrong.net. Of course, at LearnStrong we have multiple lectures over songs of innocence, songs of experience, lamb, tiger, chimney sweeper, infant sorrow, just to name a few, and here we are with London. What's fascinating about London is that almost all of the poems in Songs of Innocence had its corollary in Songs of Experience. This is one of the poems that ends up from 1794 in Songs of Experience, but there is no accompanying poem in Songs of Innocence, and we're going to maybe ask a little bit about why. Now, this poem will factor rather nicely with the poem that we recently studied, the Alexei poem on page 716 on the Amtrak from Boston to New York City, because this is a protest poem just like that one was. And we need protest poems, as we have argued before. We need to be challenged to see the world differently from the way we see the world. And it's clear that William Blake wanted to wake up, especially his very upper middle class readers of the poem London, to make them see the city as William Blake saw the city, because he lived in the city, to see the city as it really is. That is to say, there's a lot of horrific stuff that happens in a city. And of course, London, from way back when, London was a town known for its deprivation, for its poverty, for its challenges. So let's just read the poem and then work at levels 2 and 3. London. I wandered through each chartered street, near where the chartered Thames does flow, and mark in every face I meet, marks of weakness, marks of woe. In every cry of every man, in every infant's cry of fear, in every voice, in every bane, the mind-forged manacles I hear. How the chimney sweeper's cry every blackening church appalls, and the hapless soldier's sigh runs in blood down palace walls. But most through midnight streets I hear how the youthful harlot's curse blasts the newborn infant's tear and blights with plagues the marriage hearse. The brilliance of this poem, of course, is that, notice, it will begin with, I wandered through every chartered street, that is to say, privileged, we might call it, street, near where the chartered Thames does flow, and mark in every face I meet, marks of weakness, marks of woe. In other words, as in so many of the poems, as we lectured it already, especially in Songs of Experience, Blake is challenging us to see with real eyes. Don't fabricate what is, in fact, the city of London. And it is a city of weakness, and obviously a city of tremendous woe. Notice, we have cries from man, we have cries from infant. We think of Infant Sorrow, the poem that we've explicated already. And of course, this word manacled, that is to say, held down in some way. Oppressive city, we might say. And then he mentions chimney sweepers. Of course, he wrote poems about chimney sweepers. We've given lectures on that. And then, of course, the blackening church appalls. Right now, this word appalls is an interesting word. Makes pale or shocks. And of course, the fact that he mentions the church in capital letters, this is always going to be, for Blake, one of the central ideas, is that religion so often turns away. I almost said turns the other cheek, but turns its cheek away from the real poverty, the real deprivation, and Blake obviously challenging that. And then, of course, he does as well at the end mention, in the middle of the night, the harlot's curse, the infant's tear, the plights and with plagues on the marriage hearse. The idea that there are the unseen. And in any, we're always reminding ourselves of the horrors of human trafficking all over the world, and the ways in which so regularly those are the people that no one sees, that we fail to appreciate, we fail to respect, and especially their plight. Of course, at 2A, the plight of the poor obviously needs to be appreciated, but more than appreciated, it needs to be alleviated in some ways. If we can do it at all, we should be doing that. At 2B, obviously, the powerful word pictures here. Notice as well the number of words that are capitalized in this poem, and just go through it and ask yourself, why was the word church capitalized here, right? Obviously, Blake is wanting those words to stand, to represent, to symbolize something profound. At 3A, and how can we compare this to other titles we've studied? Obviously, the other poetry of Blake's, Songs of Innocence, Songs of Experience, as well as our study of Marx's Communist Manifesto in our World of Ideas lectures. You can go back and look at that at learnstrong.net. And of course, Swift's Modest Proposal, which plays a very similar kind of game. What are you going to do with 120,000 kids every year nobody wants? I know, we'll eat them. You can't eat children. Oh, really? So that's worse than letting them grow up in extreme deprivation, as we have commented in our other lectures. Finally, at 3B, what are your thoughts about this? This is a poem that affects us. If you have a soul, it will affect us, but obviously it begs the question, what do you do with those who live, especially in the city, although not just in the city, but certainly in the city, especially in the inner city? What is it that can be done to help alleviate the poverty, the deprivation, the challenges there? Obviously, the traditional answer is education, and yet we're all together familiar with the fact that education doesn't just mean schools, does it? It means so many other things. And then a final question, and I think this is an interesting question for us. Why do you think there's no other poem in Songs of Innocence called London? One answer that's been provided is that because Blake's wanting to point out there's not a lot of innocence in the city of London of 1794. Brilliant poem, brilliant poet. Well, of course, as we've said before, one of the really important voices for us in 303. Thank you.